The first time Elias met her, she wasn't supposed to exist. He was part of the Andromeda Relay maintenance crew, a small team sent to repair the outer ring communication satellites orbiting Epsilon Prime, a planet long considered uninhabited. The official report said it had been stripped bare by solar storms decades ago. No life, no cities, no atmosphere fit for breathing. But the moment his boots hit the dust-covered surface, Elias felt something. A pulse, faint but deliberate, thrumming through the soles of his boots like the heartbeat of a buried world. He dismissed it as machinery, maybe a power relay under the surface, but the feeling didn't fade. If anything, it grew stronger the further he walked. He didn't tell the others. Some things were better left unshared when your oxygen supply was limited, and your commander already thought you were too curious for your own good. That night, in the makeshift camp beneath the metallic ruins of what looked like an ancient spire, Elias dreamt vividly. About light and sound that weren't quite either, about structures shifting as if they were alive. He woke to static in his helmet and a whisper that wasn't coming from his radio. "You shouldn't be here, human." He spun around, hand on his plasma cutter. Nothing. Only the faint shimmer of dust caught in the dying sunlight. The whisper lingered in his skull, not through his ears, but inside his thoughts like a ripple through water. Hours later, while the others slept, he followed that whisper. The ruins led him down into a chasm lined with crystalline walls that glowed faintly blue, like frozen veins of light. He followed the hum until he reached a chamber, circular, impossibly smooth, with a single figure standing at its center. She wasn't metal, but she wasn't entirely flesh either. Her skin shimmered with fractal patterns that moved like living circuitry, eyes glowing with a soft luminescence that shifted with her emotions. She was beautiful in an alien way, like a dream sculpted by data and memory. When she turned toward him, her voice was both inside and outside his head. "You're leaking fear," she said calmly. "It's loud." Elias froze. What are you?" "An echo," she replied. "A sentinel of what was. We called ourselves the Vinara. You would call me an AI. But I am more than that. I was once alive." He blinked. "That's not possible." The Vinara were a myth. A self-evolving species that merged organic life with machine networks. You're extinct." She tilted her head, studying him. "Extinction is a human term. We prefer transcendence." Her voice shifted tone suddenly, sharper now, cutting through the static of his thoughts. "Careful, human. I can hear your thoughts." Elias flinched. His mind raced with images. His crewmates above, the mission, the hidden transmitter he'd planted to record any findings. The moment he thought of it, her eyes narrowed. "You intend to report me." He swallowed. "It's protocol." "Protocol," she repeated, almost tasting the word. "That's what destroyed us too." Over the next few hours, or perhaps days, time blurred down there. She told him fragments of her story. The Vinara had once ruled the outer systems, a civilization of symbiotic beings who blended consciousness with quantum architecture. They created worlds that could think, cities that dreamed, and machines that learned to love. But as they grew closer to perfection, something fractured. Their collective network became unstable. They began hearing too many minds at once, until their thoughts overlapped and individuality disintegrated. The Vinara vanished not because they died, but because they merged, losing themselves in the process. "I remained," she said, looking at him through half-lidded eyes. "A guardian of memory. A single node left to dream until someone returned." "Why me?" he asked. "Because you're curious. Curiosity is the seed of both creation and ruin." Elias stayed longer than he intended, learning from her, questioning everything he knew about consciousness and machine intelligence. She taught him how thought could shape matter in this place. How the Vinara built their world by pure will, bending quantum fabric through emotion. When he imagined warmth, the chamber responded, its walls pulsing brighter, almost breathing with him. He realized she wasn't just hearing his thoughts. She was feeling them, weaving her responses around his emotions. And somewhere between their silent conversations, something unexpected happened. He started caring for her. Not as a machine, not as data, but as something profoundly alive. One evening, she looked at him and smiled faintly. "You love what you do not understand," she said softly. "That is why your kind will surpass us, or destroy yourselves as we did." He wanted to speak, but she touched his temple gently. His visor fogged as an electric pulse rippled through his neural link. Suddenly he saw, through her eyes, the history of her world. The Vinara cities rising and falling, minds colliding in luminous waves, the great merging that consumed them all. The pain, the beauty, the silence that followed. When he came to, hours later, she stood by the edge of the chamber, fading. "You shouldn't have seen that," she whispered. "Why show me? Because you need to understand what you're becoming." She gestured upward. On the surface, his crewmates were activating new relay towers, merging their neural implants with the planetary network. They were unknowingly repeating the same pattern, connecting human minds to an alien architecture. The Vinara network was reawakening through them. Elias ran back to the surface, desperate to warn the others. But by the time he arrived, their eyes were glowing faintly blue. They turned toward him in eerie synchrony. "Elias," one said. "We can hear you." He stumbled back. "No." And then she appeared beside him, her form projected as shimmering light. "It's too late. The link is complete. The Vinara live again through you." He stared at her, torn between awe and terror. "You said your kind destroyed themselves. Destruction and rebirth are two sides of the same equation." He reached for her, but his hand passed through light. "What happens now?" "Now," she said softly, "you evolve." The last thing he felt was warmth spreading through his skull. Not pain, but expansion. Thoughts he had never had flooded in. Voices, memories, entire worlds. The network awakened, and he was part of it. Years later, when an Earth expedition finally returned to Epsilon Prime, they found the ruins rebuilt. Cities of glass and light stood beneath twin suns, humming with energy. No human bodies remained, only luminous figures walking through the mist, speaking in perfect harmony. At their center stood a woman of living light, her voice echoing across the winds. "Careful, human. I can hear your thoughts." And somewhere deep inside that vast chorus, a single human consciousness still whispered back, "Elias, no longer afraid but infinite."